All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, today we're going to be talking about um, the political machines that happened back in the 1890s, 1880s, things like that. And then we're going to get into the segregation laws that happened in the South. So we're going to go over those today. All right. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, again, your objective, we're going to analyze the impact that political bosses had, and we're going to examine the lengths that Jim Crow laws went to stop African Americans from voting. And you're going to see a couple things that the people in the South try to do to stop African Americans from voting. Okay. So here's your warm up picture. Now, on your paper, it says there to analyze this picture and to basically, based off your analysis, tell me, who do you blame? You know, if you ask somebody, let's say some kids destroyed your windshield, and they see all these kids, and you tell them who broke it, and one was pointing at the other one pointing at the other, and so on and so forth. Just like on this picture, if you notice, they're all pointing to the person on their right, and it goes a full circle. So my question to you is this: who do you blame? Who do you blame? How would you put, like, who this person's responsible? Or I think this person is the guilty one, one who actually did whatever the problem was. So if you look at the bottom the quote, it says, "Who stole the people's money?" And on the other side it says, "'Twas him." And they're all blaming each other. You know, so who do you blame? How would you figure it out? You know, would you be looking for the most suspicious one? Would you look for somebody who's been in trouble before, or would you be like some students in class said, "I'd blame them all"? You know, guilt by association type of thing. How would you personally decide who's guilty and who's not, who's to blame, who's to not? Okay. So think about it. Write your response. Pause the video. Okay, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So we've talked about immigrants living in these really small, cramped apartments. Again, we're talking about those guys again. Now the thing is, these tenements, these apartment buildings, stuff like that, were very close together, very cramped, as you can see from this picture right there. People would have to hang their laundry outside, so you could just imagine your underwear is flying up in the air and your friends can see it just out there. Now, while the immigrant people were moving into the city, a lot of wealthy and middle class people were actually leaving the city. The city area was known as the urban place, and this is where the beginning parts of the suburban areas are. Now, if you don't know what a suburban area is, basically it's the wealthy or the nice part of town where all the homes are and stuff like that. That's a suburban. So I'm sure you could think, where you're living, like, oh, this is where the nice side part of town is, where the rich people live, things like that. Think like when you go not Christmas, Halloween. You go for Halloween when you get the candy, you know where the best place is. Chances are it's in the suburban area. Okay. Now, there were some people who realized, man, all the wealthy middle class people are leaving. So they would ask them, "Why are you guys leaving?" And they would claim, "Oh, these immigrants, they're the reason for the rise of crime, so we have to leave." Um, Here's the thing, guys. Statistically, crime was lower when the immigrants were there. Okay. Okay. Now, I had a student in class ask me, "Well, how was that? When the immigrants came, how come the crime was actually lower?" Because here's the thing: in those neighborhoods, all those people were poor. What are you going to steal from a poor person? Nothing. So like stealing was really low because there's nothing to steal. You know. Now, if those wealthy and middle class people had said, this place is full of alcoholics, things like that, they might have a case because alcoholism ran rampant through the urban cities and the uh, urban neighborhoods and stuff like that. And the thing was, too, they had inadequate sewage system. Okay, remember I told you how, like, in these apartment buildings, like on the one floor, there'd be like one bathroom where everyone had to use. Well, sometimes people, flush things down the toilet that shouldn't have been flushed down, like chicken bones and trash and things like that. So because of that, it backed up the sewage line, and some of these people had to basically use outhouses or use a bathroom on one of the other floors, you know, and or two, which did happen. Some people went to the restroom in buckets and would toss it out. Yeah. So imagine walking down the alleyway and all of a sudden you just hear down below, and all of a sudden you just see this stuff coming down on you. Yeah, that did happen. Okay. The other thing too was the waterways, the water system wasn't that great because sometimes these sewage lines and the water line they might burst and they kind of would mix, and the the sewage people tossed out, the rain would come wash it out to the gutters, and then it would go into the water system. So thing is, you have to remember this: the water back then was not clear. Okay, it really wasn't clear. It was foggy, maybe brown, because a lot of it too was well water. So sometimes when they drink the water, it could have some feces in it, some caca, things like that in it. And people drank it without knowing it's in there. So it wasn't pretty. And because people were drinking this bad water, nasty water, they got sick. And because they got sick, they got stuff like typhoid, uh, they got fever, things like that. And because these apartment buildings and they live so close to one another, and the the amount of people living in a room where there's so many people got sick, disease spread like wildfire. So when one person got sick, then everyone else in that floor got sick, and then the whole building got sick, and then the whole neighborhood got sick. So it was bad. Okay. Now there was a new political machine, new political groups that were noticing that, man, these immigrants are angry, they're upset. Why don't we tap into that anger and have them vote for us? Make it, to our advantage. And that's what these guys did. They went out there and told these immigrants, hey, look at, we know you guys don't like to vote because you basically say, my vote doesn't matter. But there's so many of you guys, and you guys can make change. And I'm the person to do it. If you vote for me, I will help get you guys better jobs, your housing. I'll make sure that those landlords fixes the heating in your place, that the police that they actually protect you, that they don't just keep looking at you guys because you're immigrants and things like that. If a crime happens, they don't come just looking at you. They actually try to solve the case, you know. And all we ask for is your vote. Now, the immigrants people were just basically thinking to themselves like, well, you know, let's say we vote for him, this person, and they don't keep their end of the bargain. Our lives don't change. But if we vote for him and he actually does what he says he's going to do, our life will get better. And that's a sad thing that happens. It's like when you basically have nothing to lose, like at all, the only way to go is up. And that's what these people are. They're at the rock bottom. And the only way for them is going up. Okay. And here's the thing, those bosses did what they said. They gave the people what they wanted. You know, the sewer lines were fixed, the water lines were fixed, the utilities, the heat, and all this stuff were fixed. The police protected things like that. So the people got what they wanted, but also these political machine bosses got what they wanted. Now, what do I mean by that? Many of these bosses, they got they were able to get control of the city finances. They were able to basically say, the city, we're going to pay for this, we're going to pay for that. They basically decided where the money was going to go, the tax money for the city. And they usually, almost every single one of them committed fraud. All right. A lot of them committed more crimes, but fraud was like number one. Okay. Now, what else did they do? Well, some of the things they did was they took bribes from contractors. So they would basically say, "Hey, we need to fix up this. sewer line. Okay, they look at one company saying, "Hey, how much will it cost you to fix this sewer line?" They might say, $100,000. Okay, look at this other company. How much would it cost for you to fix up this sewer line? $500,000. We're gonna hire you. And people will be like, wait, this person said 100,000. This person said 500,000. Why are you going to pay $500,000 for the same job that this guy said he could do it for $100,000? See, what happened was that $500,000 guy basically gave a kickback, a bribe to the political boss, saying, yeah, you pay me $500,000, I will give you $200,000. So again, you have to remember these bosses, when they were paying for the stuff, it wasn't from their pocket, it was from the city, the taxpayers. And so they're like, well, what do I care? I'm not paying the bill. So yeah, I'm gonna get this $200,000 from this contractor. This other guy for $100,000 is not gonna give me anything. So why would I give it to him? Give it to this guy where I'm gonna get something. That's bribes. That's what they did. They took bribes. The other thing they did was they gave their friends cushy jobs. So they'd be like, "Hey, Ted, I heard you lost your job. No problem, dude. I got a job for you. This will be a sweet job. All you got to do is you're gonna be the railroad, top dude on there. Okay, you just got to make sure the trains don't crash. Right? Make sure the people below you that they're doing their job and the trains don't crash. Okay, they gave their friends cushy jobs. And some of these friends had no idea what they were doing. They just would tell the people below them who got the job legitimately, who knew what they were doing, um, yeah, do your job. Do your job. Make sure you're doing it right. That's it. You know. Now, this guy you see in the picture right there, that is Tammany Hall's William M. Boss Tweed, or as history simply knows him as Boss Tweed. This dude was corrupt. Now, all the bosses that were around at that time, this dude was one of the most corrupt of them all. He ran the New York Democratic political machine for about 10 years. And the thing is, he thought he was Mr. Chingon. He thought he was a top guy. He's like, I'm from New York. What are people going to do? What are they going to do to me? Nothing. It's like, yeah, the people might not, but the federal government will. And they got him for bribe, for fraud, and racketeering, and I mean all kinds of stuff. And he went to jail. Okay, in Kansas City, Missouri, there were a couple brothers called the Pendergrass brothers. These guys ran Kansas City for about 40 years. And the thing is, from what some of the stuff I read, like when one of them was getting in trouble, and there was like evidence and things like that, witnesses, the other brothers would make sure that the evidence disappeared, that witnesses didn't talk, and documents were lost. So yeah, they had each other's backs. Okay. Now there were a lot of people who looked at these bosses and said, "Oh, these guys are corrupt. They all they do is take money. They're cheating the taxpayers. These people are horrible people. They should not be in politics." And the other people, the immigrants people, were like, yeah, okay, granted, they are, you know, frauds. They are, they do take bribes. They are not honest people. But here's the thing: before them, what did those political people do for us? Nothing. They did nothing to make sure the lives of the people, us, the immigrants, were better. They just let things be. We were living in hell, and these guys at least did something for us. So, yeah, so some people saw these political bosses as horrible, corrupt, evil people, and other people saw them as, hey, at least these guys did something, made people's lives better. So you see that little balance thing that's going on here. How some people see them as corrupt, and some people see them as like kind of heroes in a sense. Okay, so keep that in mind in the back of your head because it's going to play a role later on. So the election of 1896 played a big role What happened was there was this guy named William Jennings Bryan, and you can see his picture right there. He was going against William McKinley. Now the thing is, William Jennings Bryan was very skeptical on how businesses worked and how did somebody like um, Rockefeller, no, John Rockefeller, oh my god, I just had a brain fart now. Carnegie, you know, Andrew Carnegie and Vanderbilt and J.P. Morgan, and how did these guys become millionaires? You know, what? Hold on. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, so he was looking like, how did these guys become so ultra rich and their workers are dirt poor, barely making a living, scraping and say and just horrible working conditions and you know, just every way that these companies could skim to save money, these guys did, and the workers were the ones who paid the price. So Bryant was very adamant about attacking these corporations and these millionaire, billionaire people, And the thing was, he was the man who was going to do what he said. Okay, and these guys, these Morgan, Rockefeller, you know, what's his, Carnegie and all them, Vanderbilt, they knew this guy was going to do what he said. So basically, Bryant went around traveling thousands of miles. He gave like 600 speeches in 14 weeks. That's like 6 speeches a day. And he shook so many hands, his hand was swollen, basically like 2 times its size. One of the things I read was that his hand was so like hurting so much because it was got so big that he couldn't even like really like, make a fist, because they were so swollen. Now the thing is, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, all those guys, Carnegie, they wanted McKinley to win, and even other businesses wanted McKinley to win. So they would have their managers and the bosses, excuse me, would talk to workers, telling them, if Brian wins, our business is going to go under. You guys are going to lose your jobs then. And if we don't go under, because we're not making money, your pay is going to go lower. You know, Nowadays that's illegal. A company cannot force you to vote a certain way, telling you, oh, if you vote for so and so, you're going to lose your job. They can't do that. You could really sue them for that. Okay. And like one guy from a thing I was reading basically told his employees, if you whether you vote for Brian or not, if he wins, don't even bother showing up to work tomorrow. Basically saying, if this guy wins, y'all fired. So yeah, people were scared. People who truly needed the job, they were scared. So as you could tell, McKinley won. Okay, and what happened to him? It's gonna be interesting because you're gonna find out next week what happened to him at a particular event and how that changed everything. All right, so let's jump back into the South. Okay, last time we left them, we talked last time we were talking about them. A lot of African Americans were feeling like it's back to the old days, except they're not slaves anymore, but they were basically treated like slaves. They weren't getting paid, just horrible conditions for them. They were being targeted. They had racist groups like the Ku Klux Klan and then just coming after them. So life was pretty horrible for them. Things are about to get worse. Okay. Now, thing is, in the South, they try to stop African Americans from voting. Okay, because that's where your real power comes from as a citizen. Your ability to vote, have your voice heard. Now, under the 15th Amendment, no one can be denied the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. If you're of age, you're a citizen, and you've registered to vote, no one can deny you the right to vote then, because you've done what you needed to do to be able to vote. Okay. But in the South, they were like, no, we got to find a way. And the thing is, it doesn't state that the government or state or federal can't require the citizens to be like literate or own property. So there's some loopholes, and I think that they're trying to find those loopholes. Okay, now, like I said in class, um, not every white person in the South, especially during this time, was a racist. That hated African Americans. No, not everyone. In fact, some mainly poor white people were targeted as well. You know, And a lot of poor white people were targeted mainly because they supported the populist movement. The populist movement was this movement to try to get um, small time farmers political power, to try to give them a boost up because they were not getting anything. Anything that was passed a law to help out farmers was going towards the big farms, the plantations, not the small farms. You know, and these guys were really hurting, so they tried to try to get political power, and because of that, they were targeted. Okay. All right, so back to the the voting. The first thing that came up was the poll tax. Basically, there was nothing Constitution says you can't um, charge people to vote. So they did a $2 tax, saying if you want to vote, it's going to cost you about $2. All right, to register to vote and all that stuff. Thing is, there was a lot of African Americans who couldn't afford just $2. Yet there are these guys are getting paid like 10 cents a day and things like that. So to save up just for $2 just to vote, that was like, no, you got groceries, you got rent, your kid's sick, you got to take him to the doctor. There's so much stuff you got to do with that money. So for African Americans, that was not a priority to spend their money on. Some did, you know, but the thing is, this is where it came back at them. For poor farmers, that was too much to spend too. And there were some people who were okay, had money, who were like, I'm not paying no $2 to vote. That's my right. So they were like, okay, okay, we'll put an exemption for white people. But then that's when the federal government's like, no, 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 you can't do that. You can't specifically say this exemption's for only white people, because then you're violating these other people's rights, the African Americans. You're violating their rights. You're, in a sense, denouncing these guys and hoisting these guys up. So if you're going to have an exemption, it has to be for everyone. So they're like, dang it, okay, let's try to find another loophole. And they found one. Literacy test. Literacy means the ability to read. And they're like, okay, we can require that voters have to be able to read and understand the state's constitution. Right? Because the thing is, a lot of African Americans at that time could not read. Remember, I told you, if you remember the notes from several months ago, when they were freed, only about 40% of kids actually went to school to learn to read, write, do math, and things like that. Now, the other 60% went to work in the fields with their parents. So there were some African Americans who could read. And when those who could read, they were given the most difficult parts of the Constitution and told, okay, read that for me, tell me what it means. You know, here's the problem. When they had to do this for white people too, and the white people who they wanted to allow to vote, some of them couldn't read. They'd be like, what's this word right here? I know it, but it's just just my eyes hurt. My eyes hurt a little bit. What does it say there? We. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We. That's right. We. Uh, what's this word right here? Which one? The one next to we. The. Yeah, I knew that. Oh, this next word big. This one got some letters. Okay, I know that one's a P. Uh, what's the other words? These guys could not read. So again, those white people who hated African Americans, they wanted certain white people to be able to get through this, and those people couldn't. Not all of them, but some of them couldn't read. So They're like, geez, man, we've done the poll tax, we've done the literacy test, and geez, man, we're hurting our own people, the white people. God. So then someone comes up with the idea, why don't we put that exemption with the grandfather clause? So if you don't want to pay your poll tax, if you can't pass the literacy test, if your grandfather voted, you can vote. Here's the thing. This is like 1880, 1890. What were African Americans' grandfathers at that time doing? They were slaves. Could a slave vote? No. So those African Americans in 1890 couldn't vote because their grandfathers were slaves. Now, here's the thing. This is where I hate to say it, the evil genius of this plan is. So you have African Americans 1890 right here, right? In the, let's say, 1910s, 1920s, when those guys in back here had children and also now their grandpas, their kids are over here. Can they vote under the grandfather clause? No, because they back here could not vote because their grandpas back here couldn't vote, and it just goes through the line. So that's the way they stopped African Americans from voting. Okay. Once they did that, then they said, okay, now we need to separate the two. Because you have to remember, too, guys, not every single white person in the South was a racist. Okay? Not every single one of them. That's a huge misconception that people have that, oh, all white people back then were racist. All of them were in the Ku Klux Klan and things like that. No, guys, there were a pretty good amount of white people who saw like, hey, this is wrong, but they were afraid to say things because they would be attacked, and then they had to worry about their family and things like that. So they had to like sometimes kind of hide in the shadows and just, oh, I don't see nothing. I don't see nothing. It's sad, but it's true. Okay. So again, just get that, in your head that not every single white person was a racist. Okay. Now, in some movies and TV shows and stuff like that, you may have heard this term Jim Crow. That refers to the laws, and these laws were enforcing segregation. Now, here's the thing: the Supreme Court said that the 14th Amendment said that no state, that's the key thing, no state could deny citizens equal protection under the law. Okay, that's true. But they said nothing about individuals, private organizations, and things like that. So, hotels, theaters, railroads, things like that. They could basically segregate people. You know, if you don't believe me that these places have that power, go to a store and you might see a thing says we have the right to refuse service to so and so and things like that. You know, they can. You just can't go into a store and act a fool and then think like, oh, I can do what I want here. No, you can't. They have the right to kick you out. They have a right to ban you. You know, they don't have to have you here at that place. They don't have to serve you. Okay. And that's where it seems like a lot of people nowadays, especially if you watch those videos, people think, oh, I can do what I want. I'm here. You can't do anything to me. Yeah, they can. They certainly can. Okay. Now, there was a Supreme Court case that really hurt African Americans and set back civil rights quite a bit. It was the Plessy versus Ferguson case. This is an 1896 Supreme Court case that said separate but equal is constitutional, meaning it's okay. Now, what does that mean? Separate but equal. Basically, it's like this: schools are the best example. At a white school in the South, they would give them a brand new building, brand new facility. For the black schools, they would give them like a shack, a rundown place. They both have buildings, right? One's new, one's beaten up, but hey, they both got buildings. Let's look at the books. They would give the white kids, the white school, new books, brand new. They would give the black schools torn up books, books with pages missing, things like that. Hey, they both got books. They would look at desks, chairs, things like that. Hey, give the new white school, give them brand new desks, brand new chairs. The black schools give them busted down chairs, busted tables, things like that. They both have desks and they both have chairs, and desks and things like that, tables. Now, if you notice, it's the condition of both of them are different. The white school's getting the new stuff, the black school's getting the torn up and beaten up stuff. See, that's what Plessy versus Ferguson did. It said, hey, they can be separate, but as long as they both have books, they both have desks, they both have buildings, they're good. They never mentioned anything about the conditions of the stuff. Now, if they said both sides, if one side gets new, the other side has to get new, that's something else. But they didn't say that. They basically said they looked at that again, that loophole. And the loophole said as long as they both have the same thing, which are books, tables, chairs, they're good. They never said anything about the condition of the stuff. So if you look at this picture right here, that's a great example too. The white people water fountain, look how pretty it is, well decorated, and look at the black people. Basically a pump. Hey, you're getting water from both of them. So what's the problem? It's the condition, right? One looks nice, the other one doesn't. The white one, I'm sure, gives nice clean water. The other one is probably dirty water because it's from a well. But see, that's the thing. It's still water. That's the thing what the law says. You're both giving water, so what's the problem? Okay. I know it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but that's the way it was. All right. So this is something that just I wanted you guys to see in class. These are straight from the Jim Crow law books from three different states: Mississippi, Texas, and Georgia. The one that always makes me laugh because I'm like, you got to be kidding. These people are so stupid. If you look at Georgia and you look where it says burial, yeah, they had a law about burying people. And it says the officer in charge shall not bury or allow to be buried any colored persons upon grounds set apart or used for the burial of white people. So it was illegal for you to bury a black person near a white person. Who cares? They're dead. It's not like the white person's gonna dig himself out of his grave. Go, heck, no, I'm not being buried here. No, they're dead. What do they care? But again, it's the extremeness of their racism that they had. Can't bury this black person with this white person. All right. So here's your question. Okay. Remember, I told you guys to keep in the back of your mind about those political bosses. So based off what you learn, do you think those political bosses were a good thing or a bad thing? Again, remember they were corrupt. They committed fraud, took bribes, things like that. But yet, at the same time, they did the job they said they were going to do. So, on your teeter totter judgment, where do they fall upon? And do not put, I'm telling you this right now, guys, do not put, they're both. I see them as both. No, you put that, you're getting this question wrong. Pick one or the other. Were they good or bad? You don't see me put on there, were they good, bad, or both? No. Good or bad? Which one is it? Okay, pick one. Make a stand. Okay. So, with that being said, you guys, that's it for this lesson. Um, if you show up to class from here on out, basically you will not be seeing me for the next month because again I'll be having my surgery. So, you guys take care. You be safe, and I'll see you guys later on.